Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hot Girls and Hockey podcast. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about all things hockey, the what to knows, the who to knows, and everything in between. And today's episode is going to be one that is a little bit shorter in terms of just like content wise. Just because there's not a ton of drama and stuff with the first one we're talking about today. Not that there usually is drama, but there's usually something that like I go on a tangent about. But today's episode topic is a player profile on Gordie Howe. Now, if you're just like a casual hockey fan, you've probably heard of the name Gordie Howe in passing, whether that's just someone saying who their picks are for like the best hockey players in history, or someone comparing Gretzky to him. You usually would hear it in passing, but you might not know like every detail about his career, except for maybe like what team he played for, or like whatever. So I did some research, I compiled some notes together, and I just want to talk about the life and career of Mr. Gordie Howe, or Mr. Hockey as people like to call him. He has a ton of nicknames, but Mr. Hockey was the cutest to me. I would like to say, this really only applies to my video watchers. I had every intent to wear my Sharks jersey in this episode just because I wore it to work today and I really liked my outfit. So I was like, oh, I'm going to film today, so I might as well just wear it. It's like almost 100 degrees. So I was sweating buckets when I got home from work, and now I have on a old t-shirt from I think the 90s or the early 2000s. It's for Counting Crows. If you know, they're a great brand. But I did want to show you guys it. I brought it up here just in case I wanted to change into it, but on my audio listeners, you're not gonna care, but this is what it looks like. It's for Will Smith. It's number 2. Look at it. So cute. It's really fucking thick, dude. So oh my gosh, I don't know what I was thinking wearing it in like literally the hottest part of the summer, but oh well. In hockey catch-up related news, I got a notification from ESPN when I was driving home from work saying that my Pookie, my number one, Matthew Tkachuk, is going out for surgery. So he's going to miss the first part of the fucking season. And guess what game is in the first part of the season? The game that that the Panthers are playing against the Sharks. Yes. So I'm still going to it because I still love the Panthers, but like I'm just, there's going to be a spot on that bench that is just a little too cold because it's missing something. I also just want to see Brad Marchand, whatever. So I'm excited for that. But like, I don't know why he didn't get it once they won the cup. Like why they waited until the season starts to do surgery, because like he did physical therapy, which if you didn't know, and I'll make this brief, that way we can get into like the episode, but at the end of the Four Nations, like that very last game against Canada and USA, you can see Matthew like kind of limping away, and he doesn't play for the rest of the game. I think he goes out like second or first period, but he doesn't play the rest of that game, and obviously USA lost, and then he had injured something. I can't remember for the life of me, but he injured something in his leg or his foot or something like that, and he went through physical therapy, and he missed a bunch of games towards the end of the Panthers season, like right before playoffs. Then he made it to playoffs, obviously played, and they obviously won the cup, and he like credits his physical therapist and all of his doctors and stuff very heavily for helping him gain enough strength and just help him get back on the ice to help win it for his team, which like mad respect for him acknowledging the people behind the scenes, because you can thank your friends, you can thank your family, you can thank your wife, your parents, whatever, and that's all fine and good, but there's a whole team behind every single athlete of nutritionists, doctors, trainers, physical therapists, regular therapists. It's like there's just so much more that goes into a player than just like the player itself, and it was really cool of him to acknowledge and give kudos to the people that were helping him to achieve this second one in a row. And now his hair doing surgery, and I'm not going to be able to see him. That's fine. It's fine. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm not going to cry about it. I am not going to cry about it. I'm going to be really peeved about it, but oh well. At least he's getting surgery. So yeah, I think that's about it for any catching up on stuff. So let's just get into the episode. I do have my non-branded black cherry hard seltzer. Love her. She is tasting extra delicious today on this hot day. It's an ice cold one straight from the fridge. So grab a snack, grab a little drinky drink if you want, or a non-alcoholic drink. I have my water here too that I'll probably switch out. But yeah, let's just do a little cheers and get into the episode. Cheers. Okay, so let's just start at the very beginning. I feel like that's always a good place to start. Also preface, I was a little bit sick / had some really bad allergies. So if my voice sounds a little nasally or congested, that's why. And if you're watching this on YouTube and my nose looks like it's a little dry because I've been wiping it with tissues for like 4 days, thanks. I know that. You don't have to bring it up. But yeah, I just wanted to preface that in case you're like, why is she sounding like that? So, Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe was born on March 31st, 1928 in Floral, Saskatchewan in Canada. I said that. Yep, you heard it right. 1928. He is a very old school hockey player. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Also, something I didn't know about him, he's one of 9 siblings. I don't know where he is in that lineup, but like that's crazy. But I think a lot of families had like a lot of kids back then. And then when Gordie was around like 9 days old, like he was a baby, the family then moved to Saskatoon, still in Saskatchewan in Canada. I really hope I'm saying all these names correct. I'm pretty sure I am, but you can correct me if the pronunciation's off in the comments. Please let me know. I want to make sure I can pronounce these correctly in the future if I ever mention these places. And like unlike a lot of other players that I've talked about on this channel, he started playing at kind of a later age. He didn't start really playing hockey until about 8 years old, and it was also around this time during like the I think it was the Great Depression, but I don't quote me on that. It just said the Depression when I was doing my research on him. I was like, well, which one? But I think it was the Great Depression. You can call me ignorant if that is a completely wrong timeline. But he left school to help start working so that he can help his parents with making some extra money. And so he did that by working in construction with his dad. Then at age 16, he ended up leaving Saskatoon to go and pursue his hockey playing career. And that's just a little bit about him when he was younger. So let's get into his hockey career. So fun fact about my guy Gordie, he was ambidextrous, which if you don't know what that is, it means you don't have like one dominant hand. Your left and your right hands are both your dominant hands. You can write and everything with both of them. So that meant that he could shoot both left and right, which made him like a double threat. Like it didn't really matter. And so after leaving Saskatoon to go pursue his hockey career, he started playing at the King George Athletic Club when he was a teenager. And then around this time, it was when he was invited to the training camp for the New York Rangers. And the Rangers liked him so much, they were like, this kid slaps. He's ambidextrous. He got speed. He's not afraid to fight and throw hands. We love him. He's like everything that you want in like a power forward hockey player. Like, we need to snatch him up like before anybody else does. So they offered him like a kind of like a contract. They wanted him to come and play hockey at the College of Notre Dame, which was a Catholic high school known for producing some really good hockey players. And they wanted to try to just lock him down to the team for whenever, you know, he was able to play in the NHL, then they could kind of have like dibs on him. But Gordie was just like, yeah, no. I just want to go back home and play with my friends. I hope that wasn't offensive. I love a good Canadian accent, even though I do associate it with Shorzy a lot. But yeah, he said, no, thank you. I just kind of want to go back home and just hang out with my friends because I'm literally a teenager. And this is a lot for me to handle right now. So he said no to the Rangers and then he went back home. But then in 1944, he was invited to another training camp, this time for the Detroit Red Wings, another original 16. And again, Red Wings made him an offer. You know, they said, we kind of want to get you locked down, kind of dibs, and all that good stuff. And this time Gordie said, yeah, sure, I'll take it. I don't really know what swayed him. Maybe just because he literally was like a young teenager when the Rangers were like, gimme, gimme, gimme. And he said no. But then when the Red Wings were like, gimme, 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 he said, okay. Maybe because his perceptive on it changed. I don't know. I'm not in his head. I wasn't in his head then. Not in his head now. So he would go on to play for the Detroit Red Wings junior league team, or like junior team, which was the Galt Red Wings. And then he would go on to play for the Omaha Knights in the USHL, which is the United States Hockey League, in 1945. And then it wasn't until 1946, specifically October 16th of 1946, when he finally made his NHL debut on the Detroit Red Wings. In his rookie season, he wore the number 7 on his sweater / jersey. And then later on, he was given the number 9. And that is the number that would stick with him for the rest of his career. That's like the number that he's associated with, is like the Great 9. And in his rookie season, he really established himself, just like he did at the training camps, as like a just good all-around player, like slapping shots, you know, getting into fights. If you remember, I can't remember which episode it was. I think it was one of the team deep dives. But if you remember me telling you about the Gordie Howe hat trick, which is having a fight, a goal, and an assist in a game, like that phrase was coined from him being like a little rascal on the ice. And just like above all that, he was just an all-around good player. Like I said, he was a power forward. It is like hard to comprehend all the records that he broke, and I'll go over all of them later because there's a big long list that I want to read from. But just know that he was always down for the count, always willing to go to bat for his team, and just an all-around good player. So rookie season, really off to a good start. NHL career, very good start. During his time with the Detroit Red Wings, he was also a part of a line called the production line, which was named after the whole fact of Detroit's known for like making cars and manufacturing cars and everything like that, with 2 of his teammates, Sid Abel and Ted Lindsay. And they were kind of like a power line, just like really 3 really good players. And I'm not going to go into super specifics of like every single playoff that they went to, you know, while he was on the team, but he would lead the team to 4 Stanley Cup championships. So slay. So he would accumulate 4 Stanley Cups in his career. And, you know, hockey players, they get injured. That's kind of just like what happens, especially when you have like pucks flying at you at like 80, 90 miles an hour and there's sticks and you're on literal knives on ice and you're fucking body checking each other. You're gonna get hurt. And he got really, really hurt in the 1950 Stanley Cup playoffs when he was trying to check a player from Toronto who they were playing against. And he ended up fracturing his skull and also breaking one of his cheekbones and his nose, and he had to be rushed to the hospital like right away. That way they could relieve his brain from, because it was like there was so much pressure because there was so much swelling because he fractured his skull, which is just like so scary to think about, and to think that that happens and then he's just like, yeah, okay, once I'm better I'll go back out there. Like it's insane. So this was the worst injury that he would ever accrue in his entire career, was this, which, oh my gosh, what an injury to get. But he did come back in time for the 1950 and 51 season with the Red Wings. So that recovery time, shit, nice. It honestly was like nothing happened. He just kept, you know, getting high scoring games and just racking up points. It was literally like he just got a fucking bruised knee or something like that. And then 2 seasons after that, in the 1952 and 53 season, he became the first NHL player to score 90 points. So nice. That's a low number for the number that we're, you know, familiar with hockey players. But you gotta remember, It was like early in like just the NHL's like whole career thing. And like I mentioned, he was a fighter, so with picking a lot of fights came a lot of rivalries. He had two main ones, both with Canadiens players, Montreal Canadiens, if you don't know. One named Maurice Richard and another named Jean Bellevue. I think it's Bellevue. It's French. I'm sorry, my guy. He's probably passed away now, but he had rivalries with them, would always like pick fights with them on the ice. And you know, he was loving his time on the ice with his team, racking up points, as I said, just kind of slaying the game. But things were not so peachy keen behind the scenes, because after the 1968 to 69 season, where he would score 103 points in that whole season, crazy. He was given some information and found out that he was only the third highest player on his team. He was making about $45,000 a year. That was his salary. I did put that in a money calculator to calculate what that would be in today's money. And it's only like a little bit over $400,000 a year, which, okay, not saying that that's not a ton of money. Oh my gosh, if I was making over $400,000 a year, I wouldn't have to worry about a lot of stuff. But for being the good player that he is, that's just not a ton of money. Like William Eklund signed a $3 million deal, and that's, I think, for only 3 more years. Like, that's like $1 million a year. That's a lot of money. And he's no Gordie Howe. Let's just say that. I love you, Eki. But like, even you can say, you're no Gordie Howe. Like, so he got a little pissed about that, and he went to the owner and he was like, I want a raise. And they said, fuck, fine. And so they gave him a raise the next season. But by this point, Gordie was like in his 40s, and he's kind of getting up to the age where he's just like, his body wants him to literally stop. But he's just like, I don't want to. But in the 1970 to 71 season, he did get a pretty gnarly wrist injury that would require him to have surgery. And this kind of forced him to go into retirement from the NHL. So the next season, he would get the surgery, and then he would go and work in the Detroit Red Wings like offices. He was offered a job coaching for the New York Islanders, but he declined it because he wanted to stay in Detroit. And in 1972 was when Detroit officially retired his jersey and his number, so no one can have the number 9 on the Detroit Red Wings. But this was just the end of his NHL career, because my guy still wanted to play hockey. He just didn't want to be in the NHL, and they didn't want a big liability of him, you know, getting hurt and being so old. So what did he do? Well, enter stage left, the WHA, which, if you don't know, WHA was the World Hockey Association, and it was created to rival the NHL and try to overtake it as the main league for hockey in the US and Canada. So only 1 year after, like, quote unquote retiring from hockey, he just retired from the NHL really, he signed a contract for him as well as 2 of his sons, his 2 oldest, to play for the WHA, and he did this due to being kind of just unsatisfied with working in the offices for Detroit. He didn't feel like, you know, his influence was very prominent or really needed, and so he was just not feeling like he was living up or working to his true potential, which you can't fault him for. Like, he was a player who was literally on top of the world, on top of the league, and you're making him retire from a wrist injury. It's like, well, yeah, he's not going to be very happy about that, and just being like, oh, you can do office work. Like, I get why he jumped ship to another league. And so now his new team on the WHA is the Houston Aeros. I think that's how you say it. It's Aeros. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. It's Houston Aeros. And while on this team, he would lead them to back-to-back league championships in 1974 and 1975. And he would play with this team until 1977, when he would go to the New England Whalers, which he's still in the WHA. It's just a different team now. And just so you're clarified on this, the only NHL team that he played for in his beginning career was Detroit. He was with Detroit the entire time up until he quote unquote retired. But then, as we've mentioned in I think at least 2 episodes other than this one, especially in the history of the NHL episode, the WHA and the NHL had a merger agreement. Their teams kind of all together, and how the New England Whalers are the Hartford Whalers, and now Gordie Howe is by default now an NHL player again. There was a lot of paperwork and back and forth on getting him back into the NHL because obviously he retired, and I think from what I was reading, if I'm remembering correctly, that the Red Wings held his trademark or contract or something like that for Gordie Howe for Detroit. I don't know how exactly that all works, but they worked out a contract where then Gordie can play for the Hartford Whalers. And I know what you're thinking. Sarah, I thought you said that being with Detroit was the end of his NHL career and la-di-da-di-da. And yeah, I consider that the end of his NHL career because he was with them for a long time. Over 2 decades. This new one, he joined another league and then it just kind of grandfather affected into the whole NHL WHA merger. So he didn't mean to go back to the NHL. It just kind of happened. And he almost didn't even play in that season when they merged, and there was that first one, which is the 79 and 80 season. He almost didn't play because he was having a lot of dizzy spells, but then they did a bunch of tests on him to make sure that his head was on right and everything was working good, and then they were like, okay, you can play. So he was like, all right, I'll play. And so he did play in the opening season game on October 11th, 1979. He did surpass Doug Harvey as being the oldest person to play in an NHL game at the age of 51, but he didn't play with them for super long because he had his official final NHL game on April 11th, 1980 in the first round of the 1980 Stanley Cup playoffs. So he only played that season. And then literally first round of playoffs, he was like, peace, bye, love you guys. So I don't consider that part of his NHL career. Obviously it is, but a career is long standing. It's not one season, And that is the career, just an overview of Mr. Gordie Howe. I do want to just, spew off some personal facts about him as well. He married his wife Colleen in 1953, and they had 3 sons, Marty, Mark, and Murray, and then 1 daughter named Kathy. Marty and Mark were the 2 sons that would go and play with him and play against him in the WHA. And this man has a lot of things named after him in Saskatoon. He has a campground named after him. There's a street named after him. There's a football stadium. I'm pretty sure there's a bronze statue there of him. So his influence on Canada and especially his hometown, Saskatoon, very, very prevalent, and they love him. He is I almost said he's the good, that good all around, good old American boy, but he's Canadian. But he was just a good old Canadian boy, pretty much. He was just, people liked him. They loved him as a hockey player. They loved how he loved to fight. They loved how much he, liked being Canadian. And Canada just loves him. And so now getting to some not so fun facts, but just continuing on with his life post hockey. Enjoyed life, would go to various things in his honor, award ceremonies and such. His wife passed away, and then shortly after that he developed dementia, and he was starting to have problems with dementia, so he would go and live with his kids, respectively, all of them. He kind of rotate, you know what I mean? Go rotate and stay with them. And And then he did have a stroke in 2014. And then in 2016, specifically on June 10th of 2016, Gordie Howe did pass away at the age of 88. So he lived a very long and fruitful and beautiful life, not only as a hockey player, but just as a person in general. So one thing that I did not know about him was, other than the one time when he would like question his salary and request an increase or a bonus for his salary on the Red Wings. Before that, he was never really super questioning about it until that happened. And so then because of this, a guy who was Gordie Howe's teammate on the Detroit Red Wings, Ted Lindsay, he began a campaign to establish a kind of like a union pretty much for players to make sure that they were getting fair wages. And this would later kind of, form into the National Hockey League Players Association, which is, if I ever mention like a lockout or like a lockout season, it's because of disputes between the National Hockey League Players Association and the NHL, because they're having wage gap issues, stuff like that. And yeah, I want to just end the deep dive of him with just some of his records that he achieved during his life and his career. He has the most NHL and WHA seasons played, which is 32. The most NHL regular season goals by a right winger, which is 101. He was the first player to reach 1,500 games in NHL history. He was also, like I mentioned before, the oldest player to play in the NHL at the age of 52. Then until 2021, when Patrick Marleau surpassed him, he held the record for the most NHL regular seasons games played. But then obviously Marleau passed him, which, if you wanted to know, the record before, like Gordie's record, was 1,767 NHL games. But if you combine his 2 games in the WHA and the NHL, he, like I mentioned before, has the record for the most WHA and NHL games played, which is 2,186. Yeah, that was the life and times of Mr. Gordie Howe. He was very interesting to research. He's also a little bit of a cutie. I thought he was a little cutie pie, and is obviously a huge part of hockey history. He's named as one of the greatest hockey players of all time, and he's got the stats to prove it, so you can't really, fight him on that. But yeah, that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Not too sure what the next episode's going to be, but I will put a poll up on the Hot Girls Learn Hockey Instagram page for you guys to go and vote on. I will post it on my personal Instagram. That way I can just kind of make you guys go over to the page and follow it. Some people have already found it from the last week's episode, so you guys get some gold stars for that. But yeah, not too sure what this next one's going to be, but we'll see what ideas pop out of my head and what you guys want to see. But yeah, so if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It does help out a lot. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please make sure to give the show a good rating. You can follow me on my personal Instagram, which is at Sarah X Craik, or on the show's Instagram page, which is at Hot Girls Learn Hockey. You can also follow me on TikTok at HGLHpod, just HGLHPOD, like Hot Girls Learn Hockey abbreviated, and then podcast. I post a lot on there, and I will start posting more on the Instagram page, promise you. I just need to get around to doing it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!